In this video, I'm going to give you my opinion of the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro off-road with its stock tyres. We've already produced a comparison video between the Triumph Tiger 900 GT Pro and the Rally Pro on-road on this channel, which goes into a lot of detail, but I'm doing a separate video on how this bike performs off-road because the topic is too big to cover in our comparison video and it would have made it too long. I am going to miss out a lot of the general things about the bike, which I might have covered in my comparison video between the two bikes, because I don't want there to be too much double up in content in case you've watched the other video. First up, I really like this bike a lot and it's so fun to ride, and I think Triumph have done a great job with it. Having said that, I do have a balanced opinion of the bike now. I've had a chance to push it a bit off-road, which I'd like to share with you. So this bike is on standard off-road tyres, which are Bridgestone Battle-Axe Adventures. They're not meant for off-road, but I was lucky to have dry conditions for a time while I had this bike on its test. I'm testing this bike with standard road tyres because some people who are into the Rally Pro might like to know the limitations of the stock tyres off-road and may not want to change them immediately. I can push the bike a bit in these dry conditions, but it would be a different story if it was wet, and I probably even wouldn't attempt this if it was. The difference between these tyres and off-road tyres would be night and day for off-road. The Showa suspension on this bike is good with some limitations if you like to push a bike hard, which I'll go over in a sec, but first my setup. Oh, and I've discussed this before in my first impressions video I did on the bike, so if you've sat through that before, skim forward a couple of minutes. Front forks have got 240mm of travel and the rear's got 230mm. Front forks and back shock have adjustable preload. I'm 6'1" with a 32-inch inseam and long arms and legs. I weigh 95 kgs and the standard springs on this bike are too soft for me. So I wound the preload on all the way on the forks to compensate for this. Rear the back shock, I settled on 10 clicks of preload, back from maximum. That seemed to be what suited the front forks of the bike the best and made the geometry of the bike the most balanced while I had it. If I owned the bike, I'd change the springs out to suit my weight. Not everyone does this, but I like to because I like to know what's right for me. Front forks have compression and rebound damping adjustment, and the shock's got rebound damping adjustment only. Standard settings on the forks are 8 clicks of compression and rebound damping. With the preload wound all the way on the forks, I settled on 6 clicks of compression and rebound damping. That seemed to suit me best. The back shock has rebound damping only, and the standard setting for this shock was 1.25 turns. The manual actually suggests that you should be adjusting your suspension depending on the terrain that you're riding, but I don't do this. I like to set up my bike so it suits all conditions, road and off-road, so that I don't need to adjust anything while I'm out. So I'm sort of, after a happy medium everywhere. This strategy for me just avoids a lot of hassle, and I know how the bike's going to react all the time. Oh, and just on that, I run road pressures in my adventure bike's tyres too, for that same reason that I can't be bothered adjusting them all the time. If I was riding off-road all day, I might reduce the tyre pressures to give me more grip, but because of the type of riding I'm doing, I'm going between road and off-road, and I just leave them at the road setting so the tyres perform well on the road because that's where I need them to be safe. Engine on this bike is outstanding, and it's so fun to ride on the road and even more fun to ride off-road. It's revvy all the time, and it can be chugged and laboured or pushed hard in the mid and top end, and it will always respond. When I'm riding off-road, I mainly use the low and mid-range on the bike, and it's great to ride there. If you're someone who likes to ride around and pop off things as you're going along, you'll love it. The bike responds well too if you quickly need to drop the clutch and give it a handful to quickly clear something on the trail. The radiators on the bike vent to your legs and it can be annoying on the road. It wasn't hot while I had the bike, so I can only imagine how hot that would get in the summer months, doing slow speed, technical work on the bike. When I rode the bike, I mainly used off-road pro mode, which turns off traction control and ABS. For me, it feels like I have more control of the bike without the aids kicking in and getting in the way, and it allows me to dial in just the right amount of throttle or brake, that I need. If I was less confident off-road, I might go for the standard off-road profile. In that mode, the bike provides a good safety net for new and intermediate riders. It changes the throttle map for a smoother power delivery, and it also switches off the rear ABS, allowing you to lock the back wheel for steering or quick stops in the dirt. The front wheel, however, keeps the ABS active, but it's recalibrated to allow for more wheel slip than in the road modes. This helps stop the heavy bike on loose surfaces without locking and tucking the front. The traction control also stays on, but it permits a good amount of controllable rear wheel spin to keep your momentum up on, loose climbs before it smoothly intervenes. For most people, this is the perfect balance of fun and security. Clutch is light and the bike's got a quick shifter if you want to change without the clutch. Gearbox is 6-speed and the first gear is low enough for slow and technical work off-road. Everywhere else it feels really well spaced. When I change gears on this bike, I use the quick shifter for the way up and the clutch and the shifter on the way down. If I use the quick shifter on the way down, I feel like I'm just crashing in the box. Although it doesn't hurt it, I just feel like my riding's smoother if I ride like this. The chassis is firm, stable, and a comfortable place to stand up on. The 20-litre tank feels good between your legs when you're sitting down and allows you to move forward and back on the seat, depending on the terrain. The bike weighs 228 kilograms, but it doesn't feel too heavy off-road to move around for me, and it's what I'm used to. Also, I like the frame protectors on each side of the bike. They help make it feel even to hold onto with your legs, and they stop the frame getting all scratched up. I did notice that the bike does have a chain guard on the back, but not a chain guide. A chain guide would stop the chain coming off the rear sprocket, and it goes all around the chain. Like on my Tenere you see here, the chain guard just protects it from the side. Triumph do know what they're doing, so I just suppose it doesn't need one on this bike. If I owned the bike, I'd definitely add rails to protect the radiator guards. They're not the strongest construction, and they'd be the first thing to go if you dropped it. Triumph call these tank guards on their site. While we're at it, I'd also add radiator guards to stop the debris wrecking the radiators, and a headlight protector and tank pad if I was speccing the bike up. Something Triumph don't do for this bike is a foot for the side stand, which would stop the stand going into the mud when you're parking it up off-road. I have seen it can get decent looking aftermarket ones though. I have ridden the Triumph Tiger 1200s a lot in the past, and they've been specced up with off-road tyres, and I can tell you they make a difference to your grip and also, your confidence in the mud. I rode those 1200s a lot in the last winter and I wasn't put off by much on them. Turning circle is great on the bike for off-road, and I didn't feel like it needed any more than it had. Front wheel is 21 inch and the back is 17, which is a good setup for off-road because it allows you to roll over obstacles easier. Rims are tubeless style on this bike, which I like, but if you're into riding ruts, the side of the rim might get scratched up. The wheels and rims are really strong on this bike. Check out the erosion logs I was bashing into today with no worries at all. I was really impressed actually. These are big square edge hits and there's a lot of energy going into the front wheels here. Brakes are excellent on this bike, and in off-road pro mode, it's so easy to dial in just the right amount of pressure when you need it. I've got the seat height set to its high position of 880 millimeters, and the bike feels high, but that's how I like it. If you like a shorter position, you can move it to 860 millimeters. They also do a lower seat, which comes in at 840. Seat is heated, by the way, as standard, so are the grips, which is a real luxury for riding in the winter. With my preferred setup, the suspension feels confident and stable through the rough sections, and it soaks up the chop, no worries at all, while you're on the ground. Front suspension is excellent, and it can be pushed really hard into things. Rear is good, but as soon as you start slapping the background off jumps hard, it bottoms. Doesn't bottom like metal to metal, just so you know you're blowing through the travel and hitting the rubber stop on the shock. Not an issue if you don't like leaving the ground much, but if you're someone who likes to jump, you'll feel that. I am a heavier rider though, so there is that too. Obviously it won't react the same way for someone who weighs much less than I do. If the shock had compression damping, I'd be dialing a bit of that in to stop it bottoming. I'd like to ride this bike sprung for my weight actually. I think a lot of the issues I've had with the bottoming would disappear. Can't find an exact measurement on the ground clearance. Suffice to say, it feels a touch on the low side. I did scrape the bash plate while I had the bike on rocks and things when I was riding off-road. One time it hit hard and I felt like the bike was hanging up on the main stand, but when I checked under the bike I could see that it was the exhaust that was hit here. I really like how the bike has a main stand, and although it clangs around a bit on the spring when you're going over rough ground, I definitely leave it on the bike if I owned it. It's just so handy for cleaning the bike, changing the wheels and putting on the panniers, etc. One trick here to stop the main stand clanging might be to upgrade the springs to stiffer ones. As I said before, the bike feels really neutral and relaxed to stand up on. If I owned it, I might add handlebar risers just so I wasn't leaning over the bars so much when I was standing up. Rubbers can be taken out of the foot pegs, which I always do on my bikes, because the rubbers are really slippery if they're wet. The pegs feel on the skinnier side, and maybe I would upgrade these to a wider peg if I was speccing the bike up. Triumph do another pair of pegs for the bike on their site, but I can't work out if they're wider or not. I think I'd need to see them with my own eyeballs. This bike's got aluminium gear and brake levers with folding lever tips, which are good for off-road. The brake lever tip can turn around to make it higher or lower, depending on if you're riding off-road or not. I always have it in one position though, for reasons previously discussed. What I did notice though, is that if the lever tip hits something, it might turn around a bit and get stuck in its mount and change its position, and then you'll have to get off the bike and fix it up so it's back to normal. It's also happened to me on a few other Triumph off-road bikes in the past. I always use the screen in low position for riding off-road, but change it to the high position on the motorway for the way home. Alright, that's it. I'm not going to go into any more detail in this video because I've covered offloads of other stuff in my other head-to-head video we produced on the GT Pro and the Rally Pro. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. That's it. Thanks for watching.